Hi everyone, and thank you so much for joining me for this review of the Pink Sugar and Black Salt Lenormand, both by Logan Townsend of Lark and Legend. He has an Instagram, a YouTube channel, and he also has another Lenormand deck called the Precious Possum. I will leave all of the pertinent information in the description box below. For full disclosure, Logan did send me these decks for the purposes of review, knowing full well that I was going to be honest with my opinions, whether that be positive or constructive. And so let us get started. I mean, I'm gonna say right off the bat, I don't have much in the way of petulance, poopy pie kind of comments, because I on the whole, I really enjoyed using these two decks. And I did want to take some time to use them before submitting this review, but they're really just fantastic Lenormand decks. And you've probably been seeing other walkthroughs and such circulating Tarot Tube as well as Instagram, and for good reason. These are good decks, people. So first off, the boxes. I have no complaints about these. They're very sturdy and compact, and you've got the magnetic clasp, which I am a particular fan of. So, and you've got the holographic text and embellishments, which is really the beautiful key feature of these decks, because the images are holographic. And both of the decks do come with these little pamphlet guides, and essentially it's just each card with a couple keywords. But I really do like how Logan says that these are merely suggestions, and you can use this deck however it resonates with you, which I particularly appreciate, because I know that there are strong opinions out there about Lenormand and how it should be read, and if you don't read it a certain traditional way, then you're not really doing it right, etc., yada, whatever, fuck off, Anyway, so for anyone who's a newbie to Lenormand, you can use these two decks with the help of any type of comprehensive 101 guidebook. And my two recommendations would be the Essential Lenormand. This is probably my favorite. Also excellent is the Complete Lenormand Oracle Handbook. I would say that this one tends to feel a little more like formal study, and maybe takes you a little bit deeper, but both are equally comprehensive. And when I go back to reference certain Lenormand meanings, this is my go-to. I personally prefer this one. Alrighty, so backs are beautiful and simple. Here, maybe I need to zoom in a little bit. And I love the simple matte edging of both the decks. I am personally glad that Logan did not go with the hollow edging, because for me personally, that just would have been a little OTT, and I am not a super huge fan of holographic edging. So I really do think these are quite lovely. Now, in terms of the cardstock, you can tell it's this matte, swishy, not sticky. It is fantastic cardstock. Now, normally, as you know, I am a cardstock snob, and this, okay, so here is the Rusted Lenormand, and this was printed off of and available at Make Plain Cards, right? So this type of cardstock, which is just like a standard smooth, I think, you can riffle shuffle without a problem. Or at least I can. Now, I cannot riffle shuffle this type of cardstock. I would feel like I would risk creasing the cards, and they just don't feel quite as giving. So, and maybe, you know, I'm the only one with that experience and others are able to riffle shuffle. However, I will say that it is not a deal breaker for me, because with Lenormand, because the deck is so small, my method of shuffling, if I can't riffle, I can overhand. And what I will do is I will fan the cards out and choose that way. So not a deal breaker. It is perfectly beautiful and sturdy and very tactilely pleasant cardstock. So I will just kind of talk about maybe certain ones. And also, Logan does have a walkthrough of these decks where he explains the backstory of why he chose, you know, certain images. And it's just a lovely video, and it definitely, this deck is very deliberate and intentional with like it's playful whimsy and nostalgia. So I really like that. I like the simplicity of the images. You have the title, you have a very simple central image without a lot of like fluff and distraction in the background. You have each of the cards numbered and then their playing card association. So for this first card, the rider has been amended to skater, which I absolutely love because roller skating was such a fun thing that I was actually not too bad at as a young kid. I wish they would bring roller rinks back. We don't have very many, if any, in our local area, so it's kind of a bummer. So the tree, I really love the way that this is rendered because for some reason, if you've ever watched The Last Unicorn, this tree reminds me of the one that Schmendrick is tied to when he gets in a bit of a bind. And then the tree comes to life, and it's a fantastic scene. And this tree reminds me of that scene in that movie. So I love it personally for that reason. We have the clouds here. I do like how he included one side that has the rain to connote the more kind of shadowy aspect, and then the clear side. So when you're reading, you can take into account direction. Love this version of the snake. Love it so much. It's kind of like maze game. It's a very refreshing way to visualize that card. So for the 11th card, we have two options. One is the duster, which, I mean, by the way, like this holographic embellishment, is that not just perfection? Okay, so the duster, you can either, you know, read this as repetition, that kind of laborious, like, you know, act of doing something over and over, the sweeping away of something. But then you also have the option of the whip, which I have seen in several decks with the more kind of traditional, you know, whip, as in like, you know, lashing weapon. I do appreciate this. This has more of the connotation of like sexy time, you know, and passion. So I think I kept both of them in my decks when I was using them. Child with the Game Boy, once again, very nostalgic. Love that. So for the tower, when I first saw a cat tower for this card, I felt a little bit mixed about it because on one hand, I'm a cat lover, and so this really appealed to my kitty heart. I have these cat towers in my own home, and so on one hand, I really loved this choice. On the other, I kind of thought to myself, well, you know, I know that a tower is a tower is a tower, right? In the way we read Lenormand. And I was like, but at the same time, I do like, you know, the images to be cohesive with my sense of how the, you know, how that card is supposed to read. And so, but the more I thought about it, like it makes perfect sense, because, you know, you have the whole idea of a cat feeling, you know, protected from a higher spot, you know, off the ground, which is why they love cat towers. You know, it's their home, if you will. It's their little kitty condo and, you know, condo apartment building. That's another way you could read the tower. You know, that sense of like protection and isolation. So actually, this kitty tower, you know, cat condo, is really a perfect depiction. Okay, for the letter, I am embarrassed to admit that this took me a hot minute, because I'm like, I don't get it. Like, what is that number? I mean, I understand this is a letter, but like, I don't. And then, of course, like, I figured out it's an actual like email, like message icon. I was looking at it very literally, like this is like a handwritten, you know, snail mail letter, because back in my day, that's, you know, how we communicated. But no, this makes sense. This tracks. It just took me a little bit longer than it should have. Okay, we have person for 28, and then another person for 29, which is fantastic. The titles are very neutral, and also then we have alternate persons, so that you can play with direction, and that's fantastic too. So you can see that they're in different directions and just different styles of people. So I really like that. So finally, we have two options for the last card. We have the cross in the shape of, I mean, it resembles the shape of one, but you have two bandages, which is fantastic and connotes that kind of like pain or kind of suffering aspect of it. And then you have the burden, which, okay, so this is, I think this was after my time a little bit, because I know what these are. What are they called? Tamagotchi. So I know what they are. I never had one. And so I just never had one. But, you know, I know why this was, you know, it was chosen, and it makes sense. It just, after my time. So in any case, I think that this was a well-produced, well-thought-out deck duo, honestly, and it read so well. And I had some great readings. So for instance, I used the Pink Sugar Lenormand on the 1st of November, and I usually do 3 cards. So this is what I had pulled for that day. You had the cross, skater, and snake. And this was very apt because, well, skater, or, you know, rider, one of the interpretations of this card is the 1st of the month. And so it was November 1st when I did this pull. So, you know, this to me read as kind of like an obligation on the 1st of the month. And then you have the snake. And I mean, it really was spot on, because it was, now cross, a lot of times people read it as a negative card, but I don't always. So with the cross, it can be like a duty or an obligation, but this one was a happy obligation. This was a scheduled meetup that I had with a friend. And so it was like a happy obligation on the 1st of the month. And what was great is that while we chatted, she was knitting. And so the snake kind of fell toward that meaning for me. just seeing her like knit, and the whole kind of winding and crisscrossing aspect of knitting, or I don't know how to knit, but you know what I'm talking about. So this was fantastic. On another day, I used the black salt Lenny to do my pull, and I got the dog, the garden, and the cross in this order. And what was funny is that on this day, a neighbor had invited us to like their social block party happy hour, which ultimately, now this time, it did feel like more of a burdensome obligation. And I just like, I did not want to go. I did not go because this was telling me that if I went, this is how I was going to feel the entire time. So I ended up not going, and I'm sure like Matt and I look like assholes to our new neighbors, like completely antisocial introverts. And you know what? That's fine for now. And then final reading I'm going to share with you, I also did with the black salt, and I got the duster, the mountain, and the letter. And this definitely tracked as well, because this was a day that I had my Korean lesson, and we were working on a particular document that she had up, and it was very repetitive in nature. You know, we were practicing this particular grammar concept, and so I mean, really, you would think with like the repetition, I would have been able to get a hang of it, but it proved to be freaking so difficult. It was such a struggle for me, and I mean, it took me so long to get through that practice exercise. And you know, that particular type of exercise that she tends to make me do is really difficult, and I would prefer that she not use that format with me. But of course, that means she's just going to keep doing it, and that's fine. That's how we learn, right? But this really did track. It was a more challenging lesson that did not feel very rewarding. Certainly, it'll take practice. Languages take practice, but yeah, I was pretty mentally exhausted by the end of this one. I hope that you found this review useful. Once again, I will leave all of the information in the description box below. Please purchase responsibly. And thank you to Logan for sending these my way. I will end by saying that I thought that the pink sugar was going to be my favorite. And don't get me wrong, I love them both. But because of where my room is situated and the fact that the days are getting shorter, I'm not getting a lot of natural sunlight in my room. And so sometimes this was just a little bit harder for my old eyes to see. So I ended up using the black salt a little bit more, just because, you know, against the black, the hollow does pop more. I love them both. I can foresee myself using the black salt in the colder months, and then, you know, the pink sugar in the spring and the summer. I mean, they're just both great Lenormand decks. So anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and until the next time, much love and take care.